Within a matter of hours, two different federal appeals courts issued opposing decisions on the Affordable Care Act. The legal battle centers on providing federal tax credits for state-run health insurance exchanges. Joining us now is Sonya Schwartz, a research fellow with the Georgetown Center for Children and Families. Good to have you on the show, Sonya.
Thanks so much.
Oh boy, what a day that was. So does this make sense to you that this could possibly happen, that two different interpretations of this law could have happened? And boy, did it happen at the same time.
Well, first of all, I think we need to take a step back and realize this is just another skirmish on the path for people who want to just undo the Affordable Care Act and have millions of Americans lose the health insurance that they've already gotten. Let's walk through the decisions. The First Circuit, which was the first decision of the day, looked at the Affordable Care Act very closely.
And tell us, where is the First Circuit?
The First Circuit's here in D.C.
That's right.
And they looked at it very closely, and they did a very literal meaning of three parts of the law, and they found that if you only look at that language, that federal tax credits for health insurance, which is a really important part of the law, can only be provided if your state has a state-run health insurance market. So if instead you live in a state, and actually 34 states have federally run health insurance marketplaces, you no longer would be able to get this substantial federal tax credit, which hopefully we can talk more about in a minute.
Yeah, so if you got your insurance in D.C., is that considered a federal exchange that I used, or was it a state exchange?
Oh, I'm glad to hear you're signed up. In D.C., actually, we have our own state health insurance exchange, where actually there are 16 states and D.C. that have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the decisions. So back in 2012, there were lawsuits targeting the IRS rule that allowed subsidies to be offered through the federal exchanges. And a lot of people said, as you were saying, that they felt the IRS overreached. That's their way of saying, you know, we don't want this Affordable Care Act for all U.S. citizens to have health care in the year 2014. The appellate ruling said that the Affordable Care Act plainly makes subsidies available only on exchanges established by states. Now that's the First Circuit appeal. The dissenting opinion said the case is an attempt to gut the Affordable Care Act, which is what you said.
It is. And the Fourth Circuit, just a few hours later, unanimously said that if you look at the intent of the Affordable Care Act, it's just so clear that Congress intended these tax credits, which are a huge part of the law, to apply to everyone in every state, not just states with a state-run exchange.
Now, the judges, the three judges in the Fourth Circuit, which is Richmond, Virginia, if I'm correct, okay, they actually said that they thought the Affordable Care Act language was ambiguous and subject to multiple interpretations. Therefore, let's defer to the IRS.
That's very common. Courts often play a role of looking at a law and trying to understand what congressional intent was. People do often bring lawsuits when they think that an agency has acted in a way that doesn't match a law. But there's a really well-established legal precedent called the Chevron case. And in that case, it's a very important Supreme Court case that basically gives agencies an enormous amount of discretion to decipher laws and make sort of more specific rules so that everyone knows what the rules of the law really are. And the Fourth Circuit said that, you know, applying Chevron deference, that's what we call it, unless what's been done is really completely contrary to the law, it's fine, and the IRS has spoken, and that's the way the law's going to go.
So could these two cases end up in front of the Supreme Court?
There's a chance, but we're not quite sure how certain it is. The administration so far, the Obama administration, has said that they're going to ask the full First Circuit to look at this case, and it's likely that the full First Circuit will vacate what these three judges did last week.
So let's just explain to people the way things work on an appellate level, that how many judges are normally sitting up there to decide a case on appeals?
So usually what is a small group is pulled, a panel of three judges is pulled to look at a case.
And that's called en banc?
I think en banc is when you actually ask for the full panel to then see it. So in this case, three judges said, you know, marketplaces only apply in state exchanges. Now the Obama administration is going to say, can we have all the judges in this circuit look at this case in the First Circuit? And they will probably do that given the importance of the case. And we're expected, in part because of the politics of the case and who appointed these judges, that they're going to say, we agree with the Fourth Circuit, not our own small group of judges.
Okay.
At that point, you have two decisions that are basically the same going to the Supreme Court. So it's not clear whether the Supreme Court would take the case. But it is complicated by the fact that there are two other cases like these right now in the district court level that are circulating and maybe making their way up. But we may not know for another year or two. I really want to clarify what's really important today is that anyone who has a federal tax credit through a marketplace, whether they got it through the federal or the state, they get to keep it. And that the federal marketplace, along with state marketplaces, are open for business again starting November 15th for anyone who wants it. And I hope we can spend a little time talking about how important this federal tax credit is and what it really means. Can I take a minute?
Absolutely, you can take a minute or two.
So this is a really fundamental part of the Affordable Care Act that people don't know about. And basically what it does is if you want to buy private health insurance in a marketplace, whether state or federal, you get a very, very big tax credit that's paid to you every month. So it really is more like a coupon to buy health insurance. And we've found on average that people who get marketplace coverage, 75% of their costs are covered by these tax credits. So if the premium was $400, instead you only pay $100. So this is a really big way in which we've delivered affordable health insurance, and now we have 8 million people signed up for these marketplaces. And actually the major chunk, 5.5 million, are signed up through federal marketplace states. So this is a big, big benefit.
How many people or percentage, or you may have a whole number, are actually able to take advantage of the subsidy? I was not, I don't know anybody in my family who was, I don't know anyone who was able to. I don't know anyone. I go to my doctor's office to complain about my premium. I complain on this show all the time. They're complaining too. The nurses are complaining. Everyone is. We don't know anyone who's able to take advantage of a subsidy.
That's so interesting because 9 in 10 people who bought marketplace coverage are able to get a subsidy, and the average value of it is 75% of the cost. But you know, it works on a sliding scale basis. So the higher your income, the smaller your subsidy. And it may just be that this program compensates you well.
Trust me,
I don't know.
My income's not that high.
Anyway, it really, I mean, really, people are getting these subsidies, and it's really the difference between affording it and not affording it.
Which is the whole point of the Affordable Care Act. So what do we say to the naysayers? People obviously are going to continue to bring suits. This is not going away, one suit after another with respect to the Affordable Care Act. But I also don't think the Affordable Care Act is going to go away. It seems like it's really been able to hold up against some pretty serious challenges.
I mean, I think now that 8 million people have gotten coverage through these marketplaces, it's going to be harder to unravel that.
And
people, you can't take away a benefit that people already have.
And when you say 8 million people have gotten coverage through the marketplace, this does not take into account Medicaid, does it?
Does not take into account Medicaid. And what I want to also let people know is that Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program played an enormous role and covered 4 or 5 million more people. And that one thing, while the marketplace has open enrollment because it's private insurance, so open enrollment starts November 15th, with Medicaid and Children's Health Insurance, if private insurance is unaffordable to you, these programs are open all year round, every day. So please, you can call 1-800-KIDS-NOW, and you can find out, actually it's 1-877-KIDS-NOW, and you can find out if you or your family members might be eligible for Medicaid or CHIP as well.
This is great because you're talking to us from the perspective of a consumer, which is what we are. We are consumers of, you know, I've got to buy insurance, I've got to have health insurance, and I appreciate you talking to us from this perspective. I am still curious to know, though, if you have two conflicting rulings that were issued, like the same day, basically, how is that something the Supreme Court should hear?
I mean, there's an extent to which it would be nice for the Supreme Court to take these cases and say finally, you know, the IRS rule stands, that you know, we have to give deference to the IRS. The intent of the law is actually to cover everyone, not just people in some states. and that the IRS rule stands. I mean, it would be wonderful to get that. Even if we do get that, we won't know for another year. But the administration has made it very clear, and the IRS has made it clear that the federal tax credits are still available. So people don't have to worry yet about losing their credit. They don't have to worry about not being able to enroll in November 15th. They still can. And I guess there's one other thing, which is that there are a bunch of states that have what's called partnership marketplaces, and some of those states are already moving more quickly to do a state exchange, just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case we have a rainy
Sure.
day. And other states can do that as well. So I really don't think there's reason for anyone to worry about the benefits they're getting today yet.
Good.
Let's keep positive. Let's enroll. And we'll watch it closely, and people will know as soon as possible. But I really think we need to keep positive. One of my colleagues said that the Affordable Care Act has 9 lives. We're on life 7, and I think that's it. This law is a little engine that could. It keeps on trucking. There are definitely going to be more challenges underway, but pretty much every time it's resilient, and people have gotten the coverage. And you know, when I talk to people, like a woman who washes my hair at the hairdresser who has coverage after 10 years and is going to be able to get her teeth cleaned,
Isn't that wonderful?
she's pretty excited.
Isn't
So
that
I
wonderful?
think that is wonderful. That's
So-
why I work so hard.
Well, we appreciate the work you do. November 15th, the exchanges open again, and shame on those states not providing Medicaid for the people who live in their, I can't even get started on that. Sonya Schwartz,
Almost
thank
half
you
the
so
country.
much. A research fellow with the Georgetown Center for Children and Families. Thank you for caring about the consumer.
You're welcome.